To that end, Democrats have now subpoenaed multiple former Trump advisors and White House staffers. One of them includes Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and he's tried to comply. At this point, he's using executive privilege. He joins us now. Now, he's written a terrific new book. I've read it cover to cover. I love it. It's on Amazon.com if you want a first edition copy. It's in bookstores everywhere as of today, and on Hannity.com. The Chief's chief, Mark Meadows, is with us. Let's start with January 6th. Did Donald Trump want, now this is the same Donald Trump that said many of you will now peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol so your voices may be heard. That same guy. Did he or did he not asked for the National Guard, knowing that there would be big crowds in D.C. beforehand?
Well, Sean, you've reported on this before. It doesn't get much attention. I can tell you that not only did Donald Trump want to make sure the National Guard was available, he repeated that a number of times. And I think that there are a number of people that he's communicated with that can back me up on that particular assessment. In addition to that, we can all condemn what happened on January 6th, and rightfully so. But I'm not aware of anybody in the West Wing that had any advanced knowledge that the security was going to be breached at the Capitol. That being said, as you mentioned, the January 6th Commission is continuing on. We've been trying to work with them in a spirit of accommodation to actually share what we know from a non-privileged standpoint, while making sure that executive privilege is protected. The president has claimed executive privilege. I'm going to honor that. I'm not going to be the first chief of staff to actually waive that. It's not mine to waive, and it's really not Congress's to waive. So
let me ask you a question about it. Because
Yeah.
Liz Cheney is joining with others, and they're talking about holding you in criminal contempt as early as tomorrow. Your reaction?
Well, obviously, they're going to have to do what they do, and they're a separate body. I can tell you that we've tried to work with the committee to provide them and even offered them other options in terms of answering questions, that if this has got a true legislative intent, we want to help them fix the problem where it never happens again. But I can tell you that they've been pretty aggressive about holding people in contempt, and they'll do what they need to do, and at this point, hopefully the courts can work it out.
Yeah, when they kicked off Jim Jordan and Jim Banks, it was a predetermined outcome, and Liz Cheney's mission is to align with the very people that called her father a murderer, a war criminal, and a crook, to align herself with those people and the worst foreign policy in American history with more weakness. One of the things I really liked about the book, and I know other things got the false positive, and you were clear about that on COVID. It was so stupid the way the media covered it. But more importantly, you bring us inside the White House in a very different way than all these anti-Trump books. And you speak glowingly of a president that works round the clock, never stops, and kept his promises. And it worked for the country, as we now have learned in the last 11 months.
Well, it works for the country because he was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, he was working me under the table. But more importantly than that, you had this lead in about what we're seeing with Russia and Ukraine. I can tell you it was a leader in President Trump who was strong. He didn't say change your expectation. He says live up to your expectation. And what happened is Vladimir Putin has changed his expectation. He expects weakness from the Oval Office, and so that's made him far more aggressive. It's well beyond just Nord Stream 2. It really goes to the foreign policy initiative that we're seeing coming out of the White House, and sadly, it is very weak.
Two things I think define the Trump presidency, and you capture this in the book: a guy that made promises and kept them, but also a guy that was tough with China and Russia and Iran. And I do believe that the world believed Donald Trump would act if provoked. I don't think that exists today.
Well, without a doubt, they knew that he would act. The other thing is when it was candidate Donald Trump, they were all concerned that we would be on the doorstep of a war if it was President Donald Trump. Not only did he strike a peace deal, historic peace deals, we didn't have to worry about a new war because he was willing to show the might of the American people in every situation. And candidly, I miss those days.
Yeah, well, the book's phenomenal. As I said, in bookstores as of today, The Chief's Chief. It's also on Amazon.com if you want a first edition print copy, and Hannity.com as well. Mark, we'll have you back on to talk more about it. Thank you for being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.